Test. I'm coming through. Eric, say something.
Quick brown fox jumped over
Oh,
Lay's dog.
yeah, baby. We're in.
Hell yeah.
All right. Music playing? Yes, it is. I was going to turn that down a little bit because I thought last time it was really loud. All right. I think we're ready. Okay. Welcome, everyone that is watching, to our monster tier list ranking video. I'm doing this in well, first of all, this is Eric. Say hi, Eric.
What's up?
This is my good DM friend. You might have seen him before. He's in all my other videos. So we are currently, I'm doing this video because, or this live stream, because there is another creator who is doing a video where we're tier ranking monsters types, and he wants to go over, you know, the rankings and stuff with everybody, so I have to make my tier list first. So Eric, you're familiar with the tier list concept, right?
Very.
Okay, cool. So before we get started, I wanted to go over what my ranking criteria is. So Eric, I want you to keep this in mind too, because you're going to help me rank these. So I'm going for my first criteria is variety of monster and versatility of monster, right? The relevance in the tiers of play. So like, is it relevant at first level? Is it also relevant at 20th level, right? The role play and narrative potential. So can you craft a story as this being the villain or what have you? And the other one is the lore flavor. Like, are they fucking cool? Orphan is in the chat. What's up, buddy? Yeah, what's up, buddy? Sorry.
We can come up with a name for this series of like live streams they're doing.
I know. There was like we've done a couple of them now where it's like Q&As and stuff. Yeah. So do you have any other things for ranking criteria? Like, what if for you, what would make or break a ranking of a monster type? We'll go over the monster types in a minute, but
this might fit into other categories, but honestly, like as a player, how excited would you be fighting this thing?
Oh, okay. As from a player side, I didn't even consider that. Okay. We can. I can add that in there. Let's say the player's look or player's view. Okay. All right. So that's our criteria for now. So this is what I am going to go over. This is what I have decided the ranking should consist of, right? So S tier is going to be game defining, right? So that's going to fit the variety, versatility, roleplay, narrative potential, game defining, always relevant and lore heavy. Okay. That's S tier for me. A tier would be versatile. They have good lore or flavor, and they can be used frequently for compelling stories. But they're not fucking S tier, God tier, right? B tier would be solid, but they're either niche or limited in storytelling potential or variety. So maybe there's not a lot of variety of them, or they're more niche or limited in their scope. I actually think I thought of just one monster type right now that would fit in that. C tier is there are some cool monsters, but they lack in variety or versatility. And they might have some good lore, but the lore lacks depth. And D tier, they suck. Like D tier, rarely impactful, repetitive, or not particularly memorable. Do you have anything else you would like to add to that, Eric?
No, that's a pretty good list. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone's going to disagree with us putting some stuff down.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So real quick, I'm going to go over there's 14 types. I can probably scroll down and show everybody the 14 types. So the types of monster types are aberration, beast, celestial, construct, dragon, elemental, fae, fiend, giant, humanoid, monstrosity, ooze, plant, and undead. You got me?
Got it.
Okay. So I was gonna start with aberrations, but I feel like aberrations is more complex. So let me ask you this, Eric. Does any of them immediately, pop out to you? Which ones do you want to go over first? Which one do you kind of already have a general idea?
I think we should start with humanoid.
Humanoid? That is a good one. Okay.
As they are certainly one of the more numerous types.
Absolutely. So humanoid, I wrote little descriptions for all of them, except for some of them, like humanoids, because they're basically people, right? Like what we would consider the people of the world. And in my little bit of research, what I am going off of for this, Eric, and you can keep this in mind too, is we are going off of the monster types in the new current rules, the 2024. Okay, so like kobolds got dragon now, gnolls aren't even humanoids anymore, they're fiends, you know what I mean? So there is a bit of switching around, but I did keep that from the new rules. So for humanoids, we have bandit, mage, cultist, barbarian, right? As like types of humanoid. But there's also things like drow, durgar, orcs, even minotaur can be considered humanoids. So what do you think, Eric? What's your opinion on this?
My opinion is this is a more complex one than you may originally think.
Yes.
My first inclination is to say, nobody's going to say, ooh, we're going to go fight some humanoids next session. Like, that's never really a draw. But I can't think of a single module where the humanoid doesn't factor in significantly into the story. Like, humans are fucking everywhere, first of all, but then you have drow, you have the different elf types. I mean, you have all of these things. I struggle to put it really high because I think there are things that are more interesting than them.
Interesting.
But I can't put them too low myself. I would put them square in the middle at B.
At B? Okay.
They are the foundation that most others are compared against.
Well, I'm gonna put it up against my criteria, right? So variety and versatility. I mean, it's the whole scale. You know what I mean? From the whole, there's a million of them. You could take a regular humanoid and tack a mage on it, or a barbarian, or a druid, or whatever, and make them way more powerful than just your standard commoner. So I think there's lots of variety there. Relevance and tiers of play. So I want to draw your attention, Eric, to, oh god, what was that girl's name? Avarice. Right? From Rime of the Frost Maiden. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay, so Avarice was... They encountered her before you were even around at like level 4. And she bothered them until the last session of the game. And because she was a mage. And she was a humanoid. So I think a humanoid can be relevant in all tiers of play. Roleplay and narrative potential. Okay. Again, I think that you could tell all kinds of interesting stories with a humanoid, right? Like the king is corrupt, right? That's a big power struggle, man. Like that's a story you could tell. Or, you know, there's the Van Thampers, right? Like those were just people, but they were a huge problem. Lore and flavor is where I think that there is a bit of a lack. Like it's not super cool to be like, oh, I'm fighting a cultist. You know, I mean, I guess a cultist is cool, but like you said, there are way cooler monsters out there to fight.
I think,
go ahead.
You know, a cult is cool. A cultist is
right.
Fodder.
Even the name of the cultist, but you're right. So the cultist represents something bigger. So that already implies a higher level, right? Okay. So I think I'm in agreement with you there. And then player's view, same thing. There are cooler monsters. But I am tempted to give humanoids an A tier. Because there are plenty of interesting stories that you can tell with the humanoid being the bad guy. Like the big bad guy. Would you care to counter for a B ranking?
I was already about a high B, so high B, low A.
Low A. I can agree with a low A for sure.
Yeah. I would say that is more than fair for the first one.
All right. Good first one. Let's move humanoid to A tier. All right. Sweet. We got our first one. All right. This is exciting stuff. Okay. So, where do you want to go next, Eric?
Well, we can go one size up and do giants.
Giants, okay. Move them into the frame here. All right. So, what is your opinion on giants?
I have a spicy take.
Oh, I'm ready.
People don't use giants correctly a lot of the time.
Okay.
So many people make them to be like the big dumb ogre, throws rocks at people, you know, classic mythology. But you break giants down to, you know, storm giants and, you know, I think they're like storm giants, mountain giants,
hill giants, fire giants, frost giants.
And, you know, a truly intelligent and capable species. But, I mean, how often are they used?
That's true.
Truly, how often are they used?
That's true. For giants, I have massive humanoids with unique cultures. So I did take into account the cultures of the giants. That giants include giants, like we just said, frost giants, fire giants, storm giants, cloud giants, stone giants. And then there's also things like trolls, ogres, cyclopses, and ettins are also, but those kind of fill in that dumb role, like you were saying, most of those, right? Like a troll can kind of like, there's no culture of trolls really. Ogres can have sort of a culture, but not really.
Yeah.
I do agree with you that giants have more to them than people allow, right? But I think that the stories that you can tell with, like, going up against my criteria, right? So we have variety, plenty of variety. There's one for every element, right? Relevance in tiers of play is iffy because yes, you can fight an ogre at 3rd level, right? But like, if you're trying to tell a story about giants, like giants are going to be the focus of your story, you can't have them fight a giant at 1st level or 3rd level, right?
Right.
It's not going to go well. So I don't know if they're relevant in every tier of play. But they do have lots of role play and narrative potential, as well as lore and flavor. Lots and lots of lore about the giant, like the ordning and their gods, and I mean, there you could go on and on and on for days about all the different stuff that giants have.
Oh yeah, I mean the potential there is huge.
So,
but
yeah, go ahead.
All of that stuff is unfortunately hindered by them being giants. How do players interact with a society of giants that are 3 or 4 times their height?
Right.
That I think is one of the big dampers of why they aren't used as much, and I think it should affect their ranking
for sure.
Because if they can't be used easily, it's not a high tier thing.
So I'm thinking, when I was reading it out, that solid, but either niche or limited in storytelling potential of variety really fits the giants thing, like their niche. You can tell a story with giants, but not the story.
Right. You would have to make significant
workarounds,
or you would have to change. You would have to craft the story significantly in order to include giants.
Right.
Which would make them very niche, and I would put them in C.
C, you think so?
I think they're going to C. I like them.
I think I am in agreement. First, I was going low B tier for me, because there is a certain amount of stories that you could tell with a giant, but I think that there does come a point where the variety is a little less. Because once you meet a fire giant, a frost giant, a storm giant, and a cloud giant, and a rock giant, or whatever, you've met all the giants. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. There, you don't get much more. You just had to tell stories with those specific things. So I don't think it's an overarching campaign thing. I think it's more of a short arc in the story. You can include giants. So I think I'll agree with you and put them in C tier. Okay. Oh, we're on a roll, baby. Orphan just said giants have 0 aura and they get beat by small things all the time. C tier. Very, very true. Very true. All right, what do we got? Where do you want to go next?
I picked 2. How about you pick one?
All right, I'll pick one. I'll pick one that's a little. We'll do one that's controversial. Let's do Celestial.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
this could be an interesting one.
It could be. I'm very interested to see what you have to say about a Celestial.
So, what are the subgroups of Celestial?
Okay, so Celestials are, in my description, divine beings of the upper planes. That includes angels, so devas, Empyreans, stuff like that. Unicorns, as well as archons, which are like holy guidance creatures like that. But like just very like magical, holy creatures.
Okay. I'll say my gut instinct are Celestials feel very mid to late game,
Okay.
as you know, you're talking about literal angels. Would they interact with a low level party besides perhaps giving them advice in some small way? I don't see anyone fighting them. I don't see any angel teaming up with a level 3 party for anything. So it does limit you there.
Yes. Yes, I think that as far as variety and versatility is concerned, who gives a shit about the difference between a Deva and a Solar, right? Do you know the difference? I don't fucking either, right? They're the same thing. Relevance and tiers of play, like you said, mostly higher level stuff. There is very limited role play and narrative potential. Like, what are you, like you were saying, it's not like you're gonna fight them. Right, so what is your goal with a Celestial? Like, try to team up with them, you know? That's basically all you can do with them.
Right.
But I do think that they have a lot of lore and flavor. Like, if a fuck in the player view as well. Like, if a fucking angel showed up, you'd be like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it would definitely mean something and feel powerful. So I'm tempted to not put them in D tier.
I would definitely not put them in D tier because I think lore and story is really what's going to be driving them. And those are huge elements to not only a lot of pre-written modules, but you know, homebrew stuff. If you have any kind of good aligned cleric or paladin, chances are there's going to be some sort of celestial in that story at later levels. They're going to be communicating with them. They're going to be calling on them for help. They're going to be guided through them. Like, it's just such a useful tool. I don't want to put it too low.
Okay, so we're going C tier with Celestials. That makes me want to bring Giants up one then.
Yeah, would I put them on the same level of Giants?
No.
No.
Me neither.
But are they worse than Giants?
Yeah.
Are they less useful than Giants?
Yes. You can create a story with Giants. I don't know if you can create a story with it. Like, the way I think of it, so this is DM brain, right? I'm thinking of it as, how can I utilize them in my campaign, right? And utilizing a Celestial is cool, but it's not central to the campaign. I can make Giants be a whole ass problem. You see what I mean? Like, Giants take over a city or something, like, that's a whole ass problem. Angels aren't going to be doing that.
No, but angels would be contributing to a more impactful overarching arch than a giant. Angels could be impacting the players all the way to the ending, you know, PBEG,
Sure.
whatever problem they're trying to solve. They would be with them.
I mean, Lulu is a Celestial.
Like Lulu.
Yeah, like Lulu.
Or, you know, bringing in, you know, Dame Aelin from Baldur's Gate 3. How fucking cool was it when she got her wings? That is a pivotal moment.
It is. And that was mid-game, too. Like, a little, mid-game. Okay. All right. I mean, we can put them in C tier with the Giants.
You control the list, but I think this is the first time we disagree. I would put them into B.
Oh, no, I'm not putting them into B. I can't. I would almost be tempted to put them into D, but yeah, how am I using a Celestial? Like,
yeah,
and there's not a variety, Eric. There is more types of Giants than there are types of Celestials.
True.
Like, you can just say, oh, it's an angel, but that's just as good as like a humanoid. Right, like a humanoid, you can flavor them as whatever you want. There's not like a specific interesting lore tied to each one. They're just like, oh, this is an angel. Not like devils, right?
I call Uncle.
All right,
C tier.
All right. See, yeah. See, we'll agree to disagree and put them in C tier. This is definitely why I wanted you to come, Eric. Okay. All right, interesting.
Remember, you're going to have to defend your thesis.
I will stand by what I did. Okay, very cool. Very cool. I'm very excited about this. Okay. Um yeah, this one stirred up a lot of trouble. I'm glad that I asked it. The Chaz not happy. I'm glad I brought that one up. All right, I'll do one more and then we go back to you. I want to save like the really good ones for last. So let's do a tough one. Let's do constructs.
Ooh, okay. So subtypes of constructs.
Yes. So constructs are artificial creations, magical objects, or magical machines. Types of them are the different types of golems, right? So stone golem, iron golem, as well as animated objects. So the rug of smothering, animated armor, and modrons from Mechanus.
Oh, that's right. So modrons are constructs.
They are, yeah.
Okay. Right off the bat, I'm going to say I don't see any late game huge use of constructs.
True.
Because at a certain point, you can overwhelm pretty much anything with a high level party like that. However, fantastic choice for low level and medium level adventures. All the different types of golems, all the different types of dungeon security, basically. Plus the absolute variety you can put in them with all sorts of different gadgets.
There's a lot of variety.
Yes. I would say they fall short on story, though, because I take constructs inherently as not, at least, this might be offensive, I don't see them as sentient as humanoids. They usually follow a more pre-programmed pattern, which makes it difficult for them to be part of a story unless they happen to be like a key for something.
Sure. I see constructs as, and I'll even like draw your attention. You might not have seen it, but in the picture that I chose, it's a shield guardian from the new monster manual, but right in front of it is a wizard. Right? Yes. So that's the thing about constructs, is that a construct does not exist on its own. A construct generally is beholden to something above it. So just like the cultist thing we were talking about, humanoids, it infers that there's something that is more powerful and more badass above it. And that's why I don't feel great about putting constructs very high. But I do think that there's a good variety and versatility. You can use them in any situation, in a dungeon as easily as in a manor house. You know what I mean? Like they're just as good in both places. But role play and narrative potential is where I am where they fall short for me, as well as where with lore and flavor. But I do think players would love to fight a big badass iron metal robot. You know, like fighting a giant robot is just core fantasy. So I get that. So what are you thinking for ranking?
Before we get to that, let me ask a question.
Yes.
Are Warforged constructs?
No, they're humanoids.
Okay.
As far as for the purposes of the new rules and stuff, that's how I am basing them, as they are humanoids.
So taking out Warforged, then I'm going to say I really like them. I like to use constructs. And I'm not unbiased here. I'm going to put them in a low B.
Above giants?
Above giants, because they fit into far more stories than giants.
Okay, true.
And players can interact with them a lot easier than giants. Like you said, you can see them patrolling cities, a shop, handyman. You can have them out in the wilds or in dungeons. It's something that players will actually be able to interact with at low and medium levels that are still interesting to them.
That's actually a very good point. Like, you can encounter them at any tier of play, and they will always present a challenge, and an interesting one for the most part. Okay. You know what? I was gonna say D, but the you have almost sold me on B, because that's why I'm kind of glad we did them out of order, because giant is a really good comparison for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think construct, I can agree, construct could be a B. I think so. A low B, but I think a B nonetheless.
Yeah, straddling that line between C and B.
For sure. Because I can see how using them, how you can use them throughout the entire game. And it'll always be relevant. So, okay. All right, cool. I'm happy with that. All right. It's your turn. What do you want to do?
I'm just gonna wait for the list to update. How about dragons?
Oh, I was hoping you were gonna say that. I was hoping you were gonna say that. All right, dragon. All right, well, let me know, Eric. What do you think about dragons, buddy? Namesake of the game's sake.
So, variety, pretty good, I think.
I think so.
Just going by scale color.
Sure.
Lore and history, all over the fucking place in a good way.
Yeah.
They're fucking everywhere. So you got tons to work with.
Yes.
But you were never going to pit a low or even medium party against one and expect them to survive easily.
Right.
Or at all.
Right.
I mean, like you said with, I'm afraid I'm blanking on her name. You could have a dragon hassle a party, or have the dragon's kobolds go fuck with a party all session. But they are never actually going to go against a dragon until medium high level.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of what a dragon is. And that really, I think, stunts them on this list.
I kind of disagree with you there.
Ooh, okay.
So I think that dragons are not S tier. So let's just get that off the board. I think they're a little overplayed for S tier. But the thing about a dragon that's different than some of these other things that we've mentioned, like, let's talk about A tier, right? So we have humanoids in A tier, right? So what I think is good about dragons is, I think, first of all, the variety and versatility. Great. There's 3 different kinds of dragons for each different kind of, each level of its age, right? So there's all kinds of, and that's 3 for every scale color. And that's not even including like gem dragons and shit. So that could go on forever. But as far as relevance and tiers in play and role play and narrative potential, I think that Vox Machina could not take on Thordak, right? Like, just, they lost. But there was the entire arc of the campaign. One of the greatest arcs of D&D, in my opinion, really, truly, is the Chroma Conclave started off losing, picked off one dragon after another until eventually they were strong enough to face Thordak, right? Because a dragon isn't like a construct, right? A construct doesn't make plans. It doesn't scheme. It doesn't have minions working for it. The dragon does. So the dragon can not only have, the dragon can have one of each of these goddamn monster classes working for it. An ancient dragon, he can send his little humanoid minions after you, or whatever. So I really truly think that a dragon has the potential to create a big bad that really crafts an excellent campaign. Like you were even saying, like having your kobolds fighting kobolds and stuff. Like if you just have a dragon take over a city, you know, that's a whole campaign.
And I forgot, kobolds are dragons in the dragon category now.
They are now, yes, technically, yes.
Okay, I am on the upswing now of where I'm going to put them.
Okay.
They're a little played out, like you said.
They are a little played out.
They're a little bit, but...
Like, it would be cool if I had a dragon campaign, but, like, that's not the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. But then again, if you tell the players we're going to go fight a dragon...
Hell yes.
They're going to...
Hell yes.
Fuck yes.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So I think we have to put them in A.
I think we have to put them in A as well. I think A tier is definitely a good spot for dragons. Cool. Very cool. I'm glad we could agree on that one. All right. So what do you want to do next? This one's you next. You get the next one, and then I'll do two more.
This one would be interesting. How about beasts?
Beasts. Very good. All right. So for beasts, I have beasts are natural animals, mundane or magical. So all animals are beasts, as well as dire animals like a dire wolf or dire whatever, as well as giant animals like a giant crab or giant scorpion. That also includes dinosaurs, which there is a plethora of in the new Monster Manual.
Okay. So first of all, variety, excellent.
All the way, all the variety. Yeah.
Giant spiders, classic. I mean, you got all the big ones, you know, especially for low level, medium level parties. Wild beasts are pretty much what they do.
Right.
Lore and story, I mean, because of the lack of sentient for most of them, they make cool set dressings. And it'd be really cool to fight dinosaurs, but could you surround a campaign about beasts? I don't think so.
No.
You really couldn't. So, cool to fight, not really big staying power in the story. I would say I'm going about middle B-ish.
B?
My gut instinct.
Are you insane?
Just because you have everything from mice to Tyrannosaurus Rexes.
Sure. Here's the thing. Beasts are glorified random encounters. Like, that is just a fucking random encounter.
True.
Strahd doesn't even use them as minions. He just throws them at you just to harry your travel. You know what I mean? They're not even villains.
I mean, yeah, they are cannon fodder, but it's interesting cannon fodder, and it's a variety.
I highly disagree. Interesting is being very generous. Giant spiders is cool, and it's classic, right? Giant scorpion, cool, classic, right? Elephant, right? Like, you know, like, I get a bear, I guess. You know, but a woolly mammoth just feels like something that a frost giant rides on. You know what I mean? Like, I think that in my opinion, this is our first D tier. I can't think of any good. Listen, this is what we got. Okay. For my D tier description, I have rarely impactful, repetitive, or not particularly memorable.
I can't disagree with you. I can't. I mean, it feels harsh, but going by that description, I can't disagree with you.
Yeah, it's a good random encounter, you know what I mean? But like, do I distinctly remember the one time that we fought giant spiders and it changed the course of the campaign. Right? And no.
Yeah, it's going by that, yeah. Because just by the nature of it, they can't be unique. You know, you're working on packs of animals.
Right.
Actually.
Right. And like the bird, like the eagle stat block looks exactly the same as the cat stat block. Right. You know, there's no interesting or variety there as far as tactics, or it's like a claw attack and 10 hit points. The difference between a dire wolf and a bear is a CR.
Right. Okay. You've pulled me around.
Okay.
D is pretty harsh, but
a high. I'll give it a high D if that feels better for your conscience, Eric.
Well, here's a question:
Sure.
Are there things worse than beasts?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there are things comparable to beasts, as far as it's concerned. Yeah. We can reassess. We can reassess.
At the end, we can go back to
it. We'll go back to it. All right.
Let's put into D.
All right. Well, let's pull a clear D out. How about that? That's what she said. All right, so let's do plants. That's my choice for the next one. Plants. Eric. All right, so we're starting to see what a clear D tier looks like. So a plant is sentient or animated plant life. That includes blights, myconids, tree ants, and like a shambling mound. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's iconic monster.
You fought one of those in the House of Death.
I have, yes. So that's, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, that's all that there is. Like there's no other types. Man-eating plants and stuff. That's about it.
All right, we were on the D train right up until you said myconid.
You like myconids.
I like myconids.
I know you do.
And myconids are the only saving race of this one, because the rest of them are...
Yeah, well, I mean...
So, a myconid colony is interesting. A collective conscious is a very cool subject to go into. They could be impactful to a story. They could make, I don't think they can make it necessarily a big overarching arch, but they could provide a setting for a low to medium party going through, you know, like the Underdark or something. This space that is cool and unique and memorable.
Okay.
Plus, they're usually friendly, which is pretty rare for, you know, an Underdark species.
That's true. All right, so let's put plants up against the things we have in C tier and the things we have in D tier. Okay? So do you think, and I'm not just speaking of myconids here, we're talking about all plant type creatures. Okay? All plant type creatures. Do you think that they are more or less versatile, first of all, and variety than giants or celestials in C tier? And also variety compared to beasts, bro. Like,
yeah, it's really, I mean, when you think of plants, it's blights and myconids basically.
Yeah, essentially.
But it's really limited on a grand scale.
Sorry, Eric. I know I hurt your heart.
It does.
I know, buddy. But I know how much you like myconids. I already knew it was going to be a tough one for you.
I know. You really shackled them to a losing team. Huh?
Why couldn't they be aberrations?
I
know. Yeah, I think D tier, unfortunately, is definitely relevant. I asked Sock if we should do an F tier. And he said that he couldn't even think of something to go into F tier, which is baffling to me. But if we had an F tier, that's where I would put them. I would put them below beasts for sure.
I would disagree with you there. They're on the same level as beats.
Okay. Well, then we are in agreement about where they go then.
Yeah. D&D Orphan does not agree with us at all, but we can revisit this at the end. How about that?
Yes, yeah, we will definitely reconsider, because I'm looking at where we put. I just think, I mean, I can maybe consider moving giants up one, but I'm not moving celestials. I don't think celestials can be used as much as giants. Giants can create a more interesting story. Yeah. Is it cool when a celestial shows up? Yes. Is it going to be game changing? For sure. But that situation is so niche, right? Like that's a once in a campaign kind of thing. You could, if you really tried, make a whole campaign about giants.
But that's the thing is you could, but people don't.
Right.
And there's a reason for that.
I agree. All right. We'll revisit. Yeah. It's my turn still, so let's do a fun one. Let's do my personal favorite, fiends. This is my personal favorite monster class. So what I have for fiends is evil extraplanar beings from the lower planes. They are kind of the counter to angels. That includes demons, devils, Yugoloths, and, according to the new monster manual, gnolls, which are part demon.
Let's just get it out of the way. S tier.
Yeah.
I think fiends are incredible in every story at every level.
For sure.
Whatever you need, there is a fiend for it.
I do want to discuss it, but yes, you are correct. So I mean, variety and versatility. There's plenty of different kinds of demons, devils, and Yugoloths. Like you could go any direction you want, as well as gnolls. Like gnolls now count as fiends, which is, I mean, like you guys were facing gnolls in lower levels, you know, like your second level or something like that. It's like 3 sessions in, you guys were facing gnolls, you know, and that's still a kind of fiend. I have essentially themed an entire campaign around fiends. Every game I have ever run, Eric, I have thrown a devil in there for no fucking reason. Like, just because I can, and they're awesome. The lore is wild. Like, it's some of my favorite lore ever. Or the Blood War, and just, it's so deep. Plenty of narrative potential with deals and, you know, a demon possessing the king or something. Like, you could literally, and also humanoids, cultists, like we were just talking about, Eric. That, what are they trying to summon? Orcus, right? Or you know, Demogorgon or whatever. Like, they're trying to summon a demon, which is the fucking fiend.
Absolutely fucking agree 100%. And not only are they the Celestial's cooler older brother, for just the plain fact that 90, I'm gonna pull a number out of my ass, 95% of parties can fight demons. They can't fight Celestials. They can't fight the good ones unless there is
an evil party or something.
An evil party or some extreme circumstance they're fighting Celestials.
Right.
Fiends on the table from day one.
Yeah, as soon as they show up, it's like, fucking, that's it, let's go. Even devils are like, anytime they see a demon, it's like on site, you know? Yep. So, I mean, demons are like the bottom of the barrel. No matter when you see them, you should kill them.
Yeah. With no moral conundrum either. Like humanoids, some people have issues. Demons, devils, immediately.
Awesome. Yes, I completely agree. S tier 100%. I'm glad that we all agree on that. That is why they are my favorite, is because they're fucking awesome. Okay. All right, Eric, it's your turn to pick.
All right, what do we have left? Well, we could round off the D tier at all of our favorite oozes.
Okay. Okay. And hold on to respond to Orphan. So in core D&D, like in if you don't change any of the lore or anything like that, all celestials are lawful good, all of them. Some of them are like neutral good from like Elysium and stuff, like the unicorn. But they are all without a shadow of a doubt good. Even things like you said, an angel of death, they view like Kelemvor, the god of death, as like a good presence. Like he's bringing you to the next life. You know what I mean? So let's do oozes. Okay, so for oozes, we have. I didn't even write a description because who fucking cares?
Yeah.
No, they are. I mean, there's no need for the names describes it, but the types are there's like a black pudding, ochre jelly, as well as the classic gelatinous cube.
And doesn't each ooze have its own flavor? Trying to remember.
Who told you this?
It was some.
Listen, we can't listen to what Ed Greenwood says after the milk thing.
That's true. So, okay, oozes. They're like constructs, but worse.
I can't basically. Oh, you know what? I didn't include an Oblex. Oblexes are actually kind of cool.
They are, but it's nobody goes into a dungeon saying, "I want to fight
an ooze." Yeah, 100%.
Nobody.
That is a feature, though. Like, no one's excited to fight it, but also because it's fucking gross.
Yeah. But they are a classic monster. But
classic. Gelatinous Cube's classic.
Trying to be impartial, they just are not exciting at all.
No. You can only pull the Gelatinous Cube trick where they fall into something invisible one time. Right. Or the totally clean dungeon. Right. You can only pull that one time per campaign. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement. I think that without much discussion, the ooze is just they can't.
They would be F tier.
Yeah.
If we had it.
I agree. They definitely belong below beasts and plants, in my opinion, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, everyone needs a top and everyone needs a bottom.
That's true.
We found our bottom.
We found the bottom. We found the bottom of the barrel. So, what do we have? Is it your pick again?
I think so.
Okay.
Let me see what you got.
There you go.
Just takes a second to
no problem.
I think we have
aberration, elemental, fey, monstrosity, and undead.
I think monstrosity would be an interesting one.
All right, let's take a look at monstrosity. All right. For monstrosity, I have a lot. So, monstrosity are beasts twisted by magic that are unnatural in origin. So, I made a list of monstrosities to give you the scope. Basilisk, Boulette, Chimera, Displacer Beast, Griffin, Hook Horror, Kraken, Manticore, Medusa, Owlbear. It is argued that Owlbear could also be a beast. Mimics, Purple Worm, Rust Monsters, Lycanthropes. Oh, and did I mention the Tarrasque?
You forgot the miniature giant space hamster, but it's a pretty good list. So, basically beasts but better. You have the low tier all the way up to the Tarrasque.
The Tarrasque, right. I mean, that's all everything. Every in between.
You have interesting mechanics on a lot of them. You have some of them have pretty interesting lore if you really want to dive into
Sure.
it. Fantastic use in pretty much all settings.
Mm.
Every module has some sort of beasts in it.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Mm-mm.
Intelligence is a bit of a failing, as they're not really master planners, so there's not.
Well, lycanthropes and medusas are both types of that I just have listed. Right? There's
True.
others too.
I'm trying to think though, even if they are on the more intelligent side, do you see them ever as an overarching story element, a singular beast?
There could be a case made for it, but I understand what you mean. I'm only playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Because I am in agreement with you.
No, that is good to do. The only ever time I've seen them is either they're acting independently, or like in the case of Curse of Strahd, Strahd is trying to control them for his own being. So there's someone above, like we
Right.
talked about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm feeling these go pretty high.
Okay. I agree.
I'm gonna say above constructs, high B, low A.
Okay. Well, let's go over the criteria, right? So variety and versatility, just insane. From the Kraken to a Mimic, right? I mean, the variety is crazy. Relevance and tiers of play. I mean, there's one there you could fight a cockatrice, a CR1 half to the Tarask CR, the highest CR monster in D&D. So definitely relevant through all tiers of play. I think lore and flavor is there for all of them. It's just every monster has its own unique whole core principles. Player view, also really cool to fight some of these things, like a Mimic is always a fun one, stuff like that. But I think they do lack a little bit in the role play and narrative potential, like you were just saying. Like, you would be hard pressed to run an entire campaign based around one single type of monstrosity, besides like the Tarask or the Kraken or the something like that, right? One of those big monsters. But I think similar to dragons, if the Tarask is the big bad, right? A purple worm is the big bad. It starts off destroying a city as a force of nature that you can't even touch. And over the course of the campaign, you combat this back and grow in levels. And the way that this monster affects the world also affects, it's like Elturel falling, right? Like Elturel fell and there's a chain of events. So a Tarask shows up and destroys the city. That's going to lead to a chain of events that's going to happen that could be part of the campaign. So I think monstrosities are A tier. Like a stiff A tier.
I think a very solid A tier is where I'm
All right. Very cool. All right. It's my turn again?
Yep.
All right. Let's do aberration. We've held off long enough. Aberrations. So aberrations are from the far realm. So they are eldritch, alien, unnatural, and often psychic or reality warping creatures. Such creatures are Aboleth, a Beholder, Gibbering Mouther, Slod, Nothics, Odiugs, and one of my favorites, Mind Flayers. Actually, two of my favorite monsters are in this category, Mind Flayers and Beholders.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts?
First of all, roleplay and story-wise, top tier.
Okay.
Especially Mind Flayers and Beholders and such, those higher end ones. I mean, classic big bad monster evil.
Absolutely.
Scheming, fucking with the players the entire time. Perfect.
Yes.
I can't think of many lower end scale ones for the range. However, medium and high, these are what fill out a lot of those tougher battles. And they're very good at challenging those types of players. Pretty good variety. I would say very good variety. Although it might be a little pigeonholed by being this,
Alien.
eldritch horror, weird, H.R. Geiger kind of.
Yes.
It is
but doesn't that
alien.
make it feel samey though? Like the fact that they're all very weird, does that also make them all very the same?
You could kind of say that same about monstrosities. Like they're all fairly, huge, hulking, unnatural things. Well,
I don't know. A kraken is way different than a basilisk.
Yeah, that's right. I see what you're saying. It's very thematic in a certain type of body horror.
Yes.
Tentacle thing.
Psychic mind reading kind of way.
Okay, I see what you're saying there. I am on your track. Just their potential as an overarching arc on a story should put them very high. I'm trying to waver between S and A tier myself.
So, where I'm sitting, I'm trying to look at the type as a whole, right? Just like how we had to do plants, we were like, man, myconids though, but we have to look at the whole type. I can think of an aboleth, a beholder, and a mind flayer just being overarching campaign story stuff. But basically all the other kinds don't really give me that much to work with. Right? Like there's certain instances where I could have a one shot where like it was based around a gibbering mouther or something like that, right? Like at the end of the death house, instead of the shambling mound, it's a gibbering mouther or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Pack and Nolfix or something.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Oh, and that's another thing. So like think of Lost Mine of Phandelver, right? And there's the Nothic in the cave or whatever, right? That's supposed to be this like big scary moment, but the whole thing isn't based around this Nothic.
Right.
It's just something you kind of throw in there to freak people out a little bit, give them that little taste of the horror, So I am between A and B tier. And I just said, like, if someone was going to say, what's your favorite D&D monster? I would say Mind Flayers.
Yeah. I know we're trying to compartmentalize them into their own overarching box. It just, how impactful Mind Flayers are and have been. It feels like it's a service to really put them down low just because they're stuck with gibbering mouthers.
Sure, but the thing is, Mind Flayers are also a little bit limited, like you were saying, to higher levels. Like, I can see how, like, a Mind Flayer you fight as minions, right? But that's going to feel samey after a while, right? And it's not like a Tarask takes over a city. That's a whole campaign, right? Like, a Mind Flayer, they're more subvertive, underground, slow crawl, and like the last campaign that they invented they came up with for official D&D was the obelisk, right? The Shattered Obelisk. And they tacked a Mind Flayer adventure on at the end of Lost Mine of Phandelver because the lower tier of play just doesn't do well with this whole Mind Flayer spaceship being in the brain thing.
Right. Okay. Taking it on as a whole, broad picture, B tier.
I think
they just don't have the range.
There's just not enough different types. Like if there was a group of strong types, you know, like we were saying about fiends, like there's just anytime you see a demon, it's like this is the demon thing, right?
Yeah.
But like any group of demons, even the lowest tier ones are still just as scary as the highest tier ones. But I think for like the lowest tier aberration does not really compare to a mind flayer.
Right. And there's lacking that distinctness between them almost, because you could see them all together in one setting.
Yes.
But individually there's just not enough distinction. Aberrations versus monstrosity, I think they're beneath monstrosities.
I think I agree.
Comparing them directly,
I think that they do lack a little bit of the variety that a monstrosity can bring.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's my go again. Is it?
Well, if you want to, or
is it your go? I don't remember who
I
went.
think it's mine actually.
All right. What do you want? Elemental, Fey, and undead.
Let's do some Fey.
Fey. All right. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this one. So for Fey, we have spirits of nature and emotion. They mostly hail from the Fey wild, and they are known to be tricksters for the most part, as a general description. That includes most types of hags, pixies, satyrs, goblins from the new. So all goblins, bugbears, hobgoblins, all types of goblins now are Fey. And blink dogs. Threw those in at the end, but you know, those kind of nature spirit shit, you know.
So I think now that they do include goblins, range is pretty good. You know, first level enemy goblins, all the way up to hags and such.
Right.
I'm not sure if there's any really
high tier.
end.
There's not.
There's not. But there's a lot of stuff in that low to middle, like a lot of stuff. Plus, I think they're all fairly interesting. I mean, hag magic itself is its own entire.
Oh yes.
School basic.
Yes.
I think it's weird magic.
Weird magic. Mm-hmm.
It's its own entire thing. There's a lot of depth there, a lot of lore, a lot of interesting things you can do. Now, saying that, I guess with goblins, you can fit them into pretty much most of all campaigns.
Yeah.
At least one element of Fey can fit in pretty much anywhere.
True.
I'll be honest, it's not exciting though. Something about it's not right. Grabbing. It should. It just isn't.
You're right.
I put them in C.
Okay. So let's talk about Fae real quick. So Fae do have a core sort of idea behind them, similar to fiends, right? Like they make deals, they're tricksters, they all have a sort of similar vibe, but they vary vastly. You know, you can't really compare a dryad to a goblin, for example, right? They're too different. And I think each one definitely has a core or like has a fantasy tied to them. Like lore, their own lore, like you were saying, weird magic for hags, and what do pixies do? You know, where do satyrs come from? Red caps are a type of fae, you know, and main locks, they're like created from raw emotional hatred that's like funneled into a being that comes into existence. So I think having such a strong use for them, like they you can put them anywhere. And like you were saying about tiers of play, like you're right. They do have a lot of more low to medium tier of play. But what if you threw your party into the Feywild? Right? Now we're in some higher tier play, right? Because now we're talking about Archfey and beings of greater power than we can make a stat block for.
Right. I agree. Although that feels more a consequence of the setting versus the nature of Fey.
True,
themselves.
but I feel like the literal the literal thing about Fey is that they are part of their setting. Right? Like we on our Fey video, remember it's like the setting determines what Fey are there. So they really are like one and the same. The Feywild is the Fey, and the Fey are the Feywild.
No, I can see that, and thinking more about Archfey, I mean, they kind of fill a little bit of role as patrons, sort of as fiends, as celestials. So there is an impact there.
I think that, like you said, let's go to player view, right? Like that's one of our criteria. Is it super exciting to fight a leprechaun? Maybe not.
Well, that's a good point, and maybe that's something in the back of my head is, fiends have a very consistent nature to them. Their own unique things, and they all have special talents and different kind of things. But you can pretty much tell a fiend is a fiend is a fiend,
right?
Because they're in some way they're consistent. Fae, I don't think, have that kind of consistency to them.
I agree.
Which means, let's go fight some demons. Fuck yeah. Let's go fight some Fae. What does that mean?
You're right. And that doesn't feel as good either.
Fighting goblins is one thing versus fighting a hag. Like, a hag would be cool. But...
Right. So I think another thing to think about is, can I base a campaign after the Fae? And I think that the answer is yes in certain situations, right? Like, it is going to be a little niche. But okay, let's throw it up against our list here. I mean, do you think they are more or less cool than, or like more or less useful, or, using our criteria, more or less than aberrations or giants?
I think they run into the same problem as giants, as they could be centers of their own story, but a lot of people don't use them that way. At least from my personal view, people are very intimidated by the Feywild and that weird nature of Fey. It makes them difficult.
I agree.
To make stories.
That's why I've never run a Feywild campaign, is because I'm very intimidated by the Feywild. It's harder to understand, and that's by design, Yeah,
it is inhuman, and as a human trying to create the inhuman, it's like it just doesn't work
right
as well as it should. It's a very interesting concept, but being difficult to play, I think, impacts it.
All right, so you're thinking C tier?
I'm putting them in C tier myself.
I was tempted to go B tier. Because I felt like, looking up against aberrations. I'm not even going to compare them to aberrations. Aberrations isn't fair, but looking up against constructs, right? I feel like I could use Fae to a better effect than I could use a construct. Because a Fae could serve more of a purpose. It'd be a more interesting encounter. Like, a construct is basically just a fight. A Fae could be like, oh, I run into this weird Fae that's going to give me weird advice and offer me riddles and could help me, but also could steal my voice. It's that kind of weirdness. But I think that it, like you just said, it does fall victim to the giant problem, which is like, it's just too hard to implement. It's, it's a lot to implement.
Yeah. I think directly compared against constructs, you see that nicheness comes out in Fae, because constructs can be pretty much anywhere in
Right.
some flavor. They can be anywhere. Fae, I can definitely see them being out of place in
A
quite a
city.
few settings.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. All right. C tier. C tier. That was a tough one though. That was hard fought. I'm not sure about that one, but I think we came to a conclusion.
It that doesn't make them bad.
No.
It doesn't. It just makes them difficult to use.
Right. Implement.
I'd be interested to see what the other folks say about Fae.
Yeah, that is curious. Well, I got watch my video with Sock to find out. So let's do the next one. Okay. Let's do elementals before we do undead. I'm glad we saved undead for last. Because I already know where I want to put them. So let's do elementals.
Okay.
Elementals are beings of pure elemental energy, often connected to the elemental planes. Examples of which are genies, so like Jinn and Ifriti. Elementals, right? Fire, water, air, as well as gargoyles and mephits. So dust mephit, frost mephit, lava mephit, stuff like that. All right, what are your thoughts?
I think maybe not necessarily the monster type, but the variety in those monster types are pretty good. There are so many different types of methods, so
True.
many different types of elementals, pretty good range from low to high, especially with Jinn in there.
Mm-hmm.
Jinn are pretty powerful, so they can definitely make an interesting fight for higher players.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's also like those types of elementals that are like the storm manifest or whatever, like, you know what I mean, like the ocean's champion or whatever, right? So like they do have like really high level versions.
Now my question is, would an elemental be a major part of a story? Jinn, I could see Jinn in that range. I could see them being used by something else, though. I think that's what I get from elementals, is kind of like what I get from constructs, is they are used by other things.
So I think that you're limiting your scope a little bit, because while I am in agreement that, like, oh yes, you summon the elemental, right, but that's only including like the types of campaigns that you and I would think of to run. But also you got to think there's also like someone running a Avatar Last Airbender style, like maybe not that exact thing, but like where elements are a core aspect of the campaign, right? Like that is definitely a thing. It's like elemental magic is its own core fantasy, right? It's its own whole ass fantasy. So it could be like an elemental. Like, I really truly think you could have an elemental that's also like the big bad evil guy, and he wants to, like Pokemon, what is it, red and blue, or what? No, fuck, what is it, Sapphire, Ruby, and Sapphire, where they're like, we are Team Magma, and they're like, we're Team Aqua, and they're like, we want to cover the world in lava, and they're like, we want to cover the world in water, right? Like that sort of duality of maybe there is some sort of elemental Jinn or Ifriti that's like, no, I'm going to take over this whole world and we're going to cover everything in flames. And there'd be a whole campaign about that. I could see that. That's just not the kind of campaign that you and I would think to run.
Okay. That broadens the scope a bit. And I'm working off my own experience.
True.
Too.
Yeah.
So, pretty broad scope. Maybe not necessarily the type of thing I would expect to see often in a campaign. But pretty useful. I'm not personally as excited about the prospect of fighting. I think they're cool, but it's not it doesn't feel like something you would be excited with your boys to go
Yes.
fight.
I completely agree.
You know, we're gonna go fight a dragon versus we're gonna go fight an elemental.
Also, the variety is actually kind of limited. Like, how many fire things can you fight before you're like, oh, it's a fire thing?
Yeah. My gut instinct is going B tier.
I think that they would serve a similar purpose to constructs. Like you could see how they're more of the minion of the bigger guy. So I think I am also in agreement that I think elementals have a Will just said well, you missed the discussion, Will. But as far as elemental is concerned, I think that they serve a similar purpose as constructs in that like a bigger guy summons them. And
I think that's what a lot of people think about elementals.
Yes,
when you hear
I agree.
Elemental.
I agree. There is I mean, to be fair, there is a sort of the world reclaiming itself CR30 fucking monsters out there. Like they do have stat blocks for those. So I can see how that could be like a campaign ender, but I think it's so niche that I agree. I think I'm gonna put them in B tier. Okay. Right. We're like pretty stacked here. Like this is like a pretty even field we got here. So we do have the last one, and this by far probably the easiest, I reckon. So we have undead is the last tier. So undead are reanimated corpses, spirits, and cursed necromantic beings. This includes incorporeal undead, such as banshees, ghosts, shadows, specters, and wraiths, as well as corporeal undead, which is ghasts, ghouls, zombies, skeletons, and wights. There's liches, demi-liches, dracoliches, death knights, revenants, and vampires. Eric, what are your thoughts on the undead?
First of all, classic.
For sure.
D&D.
For sure.
Huge range, tons of options, tons of interesting options. A lot of these undead have some pretty interesting quirks and skills about them that do make them challenging. From low to high tier, I think there is pretty much something for everyone.
Everything.
Especially at high tier. Dracoliches, demi-liches.
Yes.
I mean, that is stuff campaigns are made out of.
Yes.
You know, evil liches are
like when you say BBEG, that's what you think of, is the evil lich.
Yeah. I mean, honestly. Now, there may not be many friendly undead,
right,
that people could interact with, but they do kind of exist. Ghosts are out there, so there is, you know, some of that story element of, like in our Curse of Strahd campaign, one of the DMPCs is a revenant, undead. I can't think of any major weakness.
I can't either.
I think it has to go in S tier.
I am inclined to agree. I mean, variety and versatility, like you were like, as a skeleton is a first level encounter, right? And a lich is a 20th level encounter, right? Like, obviously it had to be customized a little bit, but you know, a vampire lord, Strahd, right? Like that, an entire campaign is based around one dude, and he's an undead. And you got everything in between. Like we have, it goes zombie and then ghoul and then ghast, right? Like that's a line of bad guys that goes in order. So they have they literally have designed a undead for every tier. The role play and narrative potential is just insane, and like exactly why we liked Fiends, where it's just like on site with demons, is always on site with undead. Like there's very rarely a situation where you see an undead thing and aren't like, let's kill it. I would be super pumped to fight a Draco Lich. That sounds fucking awesome, right? Like, not all like we were talking about how badass it is to go fight a dragon. How fucking cool is it? It's for some reason 10 times cooler to fight an undead dragon, right? Like now it's even more cool. But you know they're smart. They're smart undead. They're stupid undead. I mean, you can literally run the gambit with undead. Death Knight is like I mean, you could go any direction. So I completely agree. I think that undead are the other S tier that we have. There's just no debating it. It's classic. You gotta go S tier for undead.
Oh yeah.
I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with us there.
And if they do, we're gonna fight them.
I can't believe you just said that, Eric. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna take it over to the chat real quick. You're still good, Eric?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So let's take it over to the chat because I can see that the chat is a little pissed off about some of our rulings here. So I would very much like for you all to defend your cases on some shit that you don't like that we said. I will say for Will. Why? Eric. Let's revisit Faye and why we put them there. I think we put Faye in C tier because they're a little more niche, than something like an undead, right? Like let's compare it to the top, right? Like you can put an undead in any dungeon, anywhere, in any campaign, and it would make sense. Putting a Fae in any dungeon anywhere might not make sense. And that goes like, and then, okay, so if I can't put a Fae, or if I can put an undead in any dungeon, right? Can I put a construct in any dungeon? Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. So now we're looking at, okay, so we have construct, we have, okay, well, okay, we can't put it in, if it's not B tier, it's gotta be C tier, you know?
Yeah, I know. First of all, Will, if you don't like it, you should have been here to argue your case.
Tell him, fight us. I liked Eric's attitude. Let's do that. Fight me.
Video.
World star.
It is. I mean, it feels low, but when you really start thinking about implementing Fae, it narrows itself way down to either like one special little encounter, you know, in a campaign where it doesn't really affect much, or you have to pretty much model it after the Feywild.
Exactly. That's the exact same thing with the giants too. Like you could have an encounter with the giant, or you can have an entire campaign based around giants.
But it has to be built around that.
Right.
Otherwise, it just doesn't fit.
Right. I completely agree. I think I agree with all of our choices, man. These are great. This is great. Humanoids. Yeah, what's up?
Let's see, Orphan is still angry about Celestials.
Oh my gosh.
Which
I can't. How am I supposed to implement, like we just said? Okay, so let's compare them in tiers, right? So we have a construct, right? No, let's not even do construct. Let's compare Celestials to the other ones around it, right? So giants, the reason that we put giants where they are is because they are a little too powerful to be used in all tiers of play. And if we were going to have them in a campaign, we would have to base the entire campaign around giants, right? Or like have there be a big impact of giants in the campaign. Otherwise, it's a very small presence. The same thing with Fae. We just discussed that. So Celestials you would either have to base your entire campaign around the idea that you are working with a celestial, or it is some sort of you've been chosen by a celestial. Talos is god of storms and has followers. Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Yes. So Talos is a god. So gods aren't a part of this, right? Gods don't count. They're not a monster type. And secondly, you're talking about the followers of Talos, which are humanoids. And not only are they humanoids, they're berserkers in Dragons of Ice Pirate Peak. They're literally berserkers, which is a type of humanoid, not celestials. And maybe maybe their leader has the celestial type, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I can look into it. I know they have this big ass boar. I know that was part of the campaign too. I'll look into it right now.
Thinking about it, of just how I view celestials and will use them in my campaigns. Honestly, they're more used as what's the word I'm looking for? Like a revelation that, oh, this thing is a celestial. That's pretty cool. It's just a fun fact, really.
Right.
I mean, it's not super impactful to the story. It feels wrong, but I can't argue my way out of it.
So for Orphan, no, gods aren't, there's no stat blocks for gods. Gods aren't monsters. We're just talking about monsters, generally like monsters that appear just in the monster manual. That's kind of what I was basing this off of. Like I only used examples from the new modern monster manual. So gods are gods. I mean, I guess they are kind of celestials, but they don't have a stat block. You can't like have a stat block for a god. Though you can have a stat block for a demon lord. But their powers are not, they don't rival each other. Like a god would probably wipe the floor with 1-on-1, 1v1, Talos v Demogorgon, right? Talos would fuck up Demogorgon.
Right. Gods are their own tier above this.
Yeah, right. They're not monsters.
I'm trying to think if there's a campaign that actually goes against an actual god.
Kind of. In rhyme. In rhyme. But she isn't a god, right? When she's on the mortal plane, she's like first of all, she's barely a god to begin with. She's like a secondary god, whatever they're called. And then the other thing is she's been banished and take all of her power stripped from her. So even at her lowest form, this is her punishment form, she's still a campaign ending boss. But she's now a monster. And that, yeah, I think Oral is a celestial as far as the campaign is concerned. I think so. I wouldn't see why not. I don't see why not. Essentials Kid. Trying to find this where he was talking about, because there is a
3 Diablo. Yeah, we're going off 2024.
Right.
Which is why it's the goblins and now fae and kobolds are now dragons. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and gnolls are fiends, which is it makes sense.
I can see that.
Yeah,
by their creation, they were created by, I can't remember his
name.
Yanagu. So yeah, I can see fiends.
I'm happy with our little tier list, Eric. I really appreciate you coming in and helping me make our little list. I'm very happy. I gotta save it, and we'll use it for my upcoming video with Homeboy. That'll be good.
Hell yeah! What I am going to be looking forward to is what the others come up with.
I am interested to see. So I know that Sock himself is a huge fan of aberrations. His favorite monster is a aboleth. So I think he's gonna put aberrations in a S tier. Which is gonna be interesting. I can see where his head's at, but there's no way it's not, like fiends and undead are just, I mean, essential.
You've had 40 years of world building on fiends and undead. It's hard to beat them.
Right. I can like dragons could be S tier if they weren't a little played out. Like, you know, like I expect a dragon, you know?
Right.
You can't really subvert me with a dragon. So all right, I'm happy. Is anybody
I'm very happy with this?
Yeah. Is there anybody watching that wants to say anything at all? We'll give you guys a minute or two to input some stuff. Any questions about anything at all? While I got Eric, and we can answer any questions, and then me and Eric will sign off for the night. I've been doing some campaign prep, getting ready for the races.
I am really looking forward to those. Those are going to be. It's going to be really interesting because it is a lot to run.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about. I messaged Carl and like I might get Carl to help me. Like I was like, hey Carl, can you come in and maybe help me run all this stuff? So Carl might be giving me a hand doing that. Cool, man. We made a very even list too, huh? Like if there was one more creature type, we might have put it in S tier. It had like a perfectly square thing.
Well, you know what? It makes sense. You know, you have your low ones and you have your high ones. It's all pretty well
balanced. Yeah, I mean, yeah. It feels like there's a good place for everything. You feel better about beasts being in D tier now when you're looking at the whole list?
I do. Looking at it on a whole, it makes sense.
Right.
It really does.
Right. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I like, you know, I got surprised with Construct. I wasn't expecting, like, I think I had Construct for like B or like C or D, I think. But I can see how they can be used in basically any setting.
I mean, with me, I put them pretty highly just because they aren't only enemies.
Right.
Is they are useful, you know, like you have the wizard with his shield guardian, and you have, you know, these high magic societies with constructs of all different types and nature.
Right.
Like
Right.
so versatile.
The statue coming to life and attack at the jungle temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, doesn't Waterdeep have like giant
They
statues
do.
that come
They
to life?
do.
It is so deceptively deep. You think of constructs, you don't recognize just how big they can be.
Right. Okay, cool. All right, I'm very happy. It doesn't look like anybody's saying anything, so I appreciate everyone joining us for this little thing. Thank you, Eric, for joining me and helping me out and making a list. I had a lot of fun, buddy. I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, this was great, Jay. I thank you for inviting me on, and thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you all for watching. And we will see you on the next stream. Stay sharp and farewell, adventurers.
Farewell, adventurers.